Hello, welcome to Smileys. Tonight we are discussing chapter 13. God damn.
13.
Fall of Light by Stephen Erickson. It's a more jovial, a bit smaller chapter. I'm joined by Mora. Hello, Mora.
Hi. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You?
I'm nice. It's so small, chapter 13.
Yeah.
It's so tiny. So I just took it.
And it's actually a joy, unlike the other chapters which we're summarizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hardly any moments of sadness or nothing to make us stop and
A lot
worry
of
what
angst,
is going on. Oh, that's young people angst. Who cares?
Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. Feel free to take us
I'm
away.
Gothos. I'm sorry.
Right.
Right. So, Fall of Light, chapter 13, scene 1. I've gone back to traditional naming. So this is called Arathan and Korya.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very simple. Let's keep it simple. It's a simple chapter. We have 40, 45 minutes of recording and we can just move on. Okay, so Korya, the chapter starts with Korya telling Arathan he has freckles on his arms. Right? And the chapter ends also with the same line that she's going to find a man with freckles on his arms. So this is the through line of this chapter. So Arathan tells her that he's working with expensive vellum. Vellum is how we pronounce it, right? It's rare and it's a rare and expensive material, and so please don't startle me while I'm working. And he says he actually came to this place, which is like a small hidden house or a store or something, instead of working at the Tower of Hate, because he wanted some peace and quiet. Because people have been dropping in to visit Gothos all the time to complain about Hood, thinking that Gothos has some influence over Hood. So Arathan has come here to get away from all that. Anyway, once he asks who is this guy with freckles, and he learns that it's a dog runner. He tells her that it need not be freckles, it could be welts from lice and ticks. And she says that's not true. It's just him being a typical Taoist, classist, racist, whatever. She says they use oils to drown insects, and this oil also makes their arm hair glisten like gold. Arathan then tells her to go, why don't you go sleep with him? Because, and make it soon, because he's probably going to start marching with Hood's army. Korya calls this is just absurd. They're not marching anywhere because Hood doesn't know where to go. And Arathan says maybe he is waiting for more people to join them. Korya points out that the few people who have been coming now are all just spectators and nobody's, people have stopped coming, is basically what she's trying to say. Then she notices all the etched walls in that house. And she's told that this is not Jaghut script, but something made by the mad builders. So basically, this chapter is just dealing with Azath houses. Whatever doubts we have in Gardens of the Moon, more or less it's getting cleared here. So that one guy who read Karkanas before Gardens of the Moon would have been like, I know this Azath, I know Finest. It must have been like that, right? So he's saying this script was made by the builders, the ones who make Azath houses. Korya calls this a very dumb idea because everybody knows Azath houses just appear. Nobody makes them, nobody builds them. And then he notices this acorn in her hand and says that there are no oak trees nearby. It's just so abnormally slipped inside in that dialogue. They're talking about Azath houses and then all of a sudden he mentions the acorn and then they continue talking about the Azath houses. I don't know, it's a bit clumsy if you ask me. Anyway, she says the Azath houses just grow up out of the ground. She has been told by Hout that the yards are always hungry, and he finds it all very ominous sounding, and so decides to visit the one Azath house at the west side of the town. And apparently it sprang up when Omtos was 1,000 years old. And this made the Jaghut get angry, and they decided to ignore it. Korya wants to come along, but then he reminds her. What does he say? I think you like it.
Freckles won't like that.
Yeah. Then she has to hit back. So she tells him that there is no way Arathan will be allowed to leave and that he's hiding. And people have told her it's to do with a woman. And since Arathan is a dumbass, he doesn't say what woman? He doesn't say that. He says, nobody knows about that here. And you're just making it up. He just confirms her bluff. And then Korya asks about her and Arathan just ignores her. Then they start going. They go to the west end of the town to reach the Azath house. And on the way, she notices all these abandoned buildings which are being occupied now. And they leave once out of this actual portion of the city, that is all just ruins and overgrown gardens and all that. Arathan is impressed that they left all this behind just by the argument of a single Jaghut. Can something like this happen to the Taist, he wonders, and Korya says no. They like their arguments messy and ugly and bloody. She has received news of civil war from some deniers who joined yesterday, and she says they were hunters whose mates and children were slaughtered in the forests. And now they have actually lost part of their black skin and are now grey. Like the dog runners have a ritual of smearing ash during mourning. They look like that, but it's a more permanent look of mourning. Now, are the deniers supposed to be black skinned? No, right?
I was gonna say no. No.
Yeah.
No.
So these might be like some renegade Andy who have joined the deniers and like lost their black skin and then they have come here.
Maybe.
So
maybe Korya just doesn't know enough about them.
Yeah. And maybe just like, there are many paths to ascendancy. There must be many paths to being Edur, is what we're going to finally reach a conclusion. That's what I feel. There's not like one.
I can't say because, later chapters.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot more on the Eater and the Deniers later in this book.
Which you're probably struggling with right now.
A little bit.
No comments. Yeah. Now anyway, she tells him that she has to go back. But Arathan says she can't because she's not yet of the proper age. She's still a hostage. And she tells Jaghut is looking for someone else to take her. But she's so done with old men and old women. And Arathan says that, he's so wise. So he says, you shouldn't reject the wisdom of your elders. And she tells him that he's wasting his life by scribbling the confessions of a Jaghut who is too spineless to commit suicide. I think she says too weak-kneed to commit suicide. Okay, then she tells him that there is sorcery all around them and they just have to reach for it. But she hasn't yet reached because Jaghut has told her that her aspect waits somewhere else. Her aspect is darkness. That is a sorcery of Mother Dark herself. Right? And she names it like Kural Galain. I don't know whether she means the place or the sorcery name itself. I'm not sure. Because it was only last chapter that Galan had named it, right? So she probably means just the city name or the realm. Anyway, Arathan says Mother Dark doesn't grant her sorcery to anyone. So how is it possible? She says it doesn't matter. Jaghut has explained everything to her and her aspect is darkness. Now, when Karish was killed, Krul's sorcery was corrupted. So it was answered by a cleansing with something elemental, like darkness. Arathan asks about light and she says, yes, light is elemental too. And so he points out that Urusander and the Legion now have a just claim in the power they seek. So the civil war is just. She tells him the ends don't justify the means. And Arathan says Gothos would have agreed with her, since that is one of the core arguments he used against civilization. All the crimes of progress happen with the goal of creating something better. This thing about shell game, do you want to read it out?
He says the culture's value system is in fact a shell game. It changes in the name of convenience. The stone is under one of the shells, meaning all the others are hollow. And therein lies the hypocrisy of a civilization's pronounced set of values. Even the weight of those values, those stones, changes depending on the whims of the one running the game.
Yeah. So Korya tells him, this is my favorite, she tells him it is easy to find flaws, but it is much harder to find solutions. And he tells her that there are no solutions. The civilization they build, since they are imperfect beings, it's going to be an imperfect civilization. They're all tyrants at heart, so despots are going to thrive. And they need to have historians to hide all their lies. And they proudly wear the mask of civilization, but it is still a mask. And Korya has the best possible response to this. She tells him, what Gothos deserves?
A kick between the legs, which I agree with wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, Arathan says that even Gothos is going to agree with her. Like, it takes away the sting of it, right? Like, what's the point in kicking this guy if he's saying, yes, I deserved it? So basically that's what she tells him. She says it is no consolation. And this is why she's done with all these old people. Hope dies to a 10,000 small cuts. And these guys are all scarred terribly. She tells him civilization is a way to check their venal impulses. And he tells her it works only till someone decides to twist it around. All this is happening, and then Korya finally says Gothos has made Arathan much older before his time, and he agrees, yes, even the Lord of Hate is flawed and imperfect. She's pretty frustrated, and then she almost walks away from this house. But Arathan asks her, she has come all this way, so why don't you join us? Why don't you join me? Let's explore this house. She decides to walk up the flagstone path. The yard has only a few scraggly trees and mounds, and they reach this door, which is very solid looking. And Arathan says, Gothos said it appeared 1,000 years ago. That can't be right? He already said something like the house appeared when Omtos Falak was 1,000 years old, not 1,000 years ago. Is it you just mixing things up? Or
maybe just Omtos Falak is 2,000 years old. No?
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, very fair.
That's what I thought. Yeah, which
I did think that
introduces a lot of problems, but we're not going to talk about those problems now.
It can't be already in this chapter we know Gothos has lived in millennia.
Yeah,
it really can't be that Omtos Falak is 2,000 years old exactly. Anyway, she says this house can't be that old. The fittings are still iron; they're not rusted, but it is blackened iron. As a chemical engineer, do you have anything to add here? What exactly is blackened iron?
Don't
just give it.
Generally speaking, iron doesn't blacken with time or age. It rusts, and rust is an oxide, meaning it is formed by the reaction with oxygen.
Yeah.
Unlike other oxides, like aluminum oxide, it does not. I don't remember the word. Basically, it doesn't protect the outer layer, and so it permeates throughout the iron. Aluminum oxide, for instance, just forms a protective film outside the aluminum, and so it doesn't, beneath that you have proper aluminum. Iron doesn't have that. If iron rusts, it's going to rust within. Blackened iron, as far as I understand it, is essentially iron that's been pre-processed with a certain chemical, usually some black oxide, to protect it against rust, which is rather advanced metalworking for a civilization like the Jaghut. But we're gonna get there too. Just patience. 2 weeks from now, give or take.
Is it any alloy of iron you can make which keeps it black? Is that what you're saying? What do
it's
you
not
add
an
to
alloy
iron?
per se. It's more like a coating, not exactly a paint, but it's more like something you put on top rather than Yeah.
Why is it that advanced?
Because those materials aren't really, something you find lying around. Mostly they're synthetic, at least the ones we use now.
Okay, thanks. So it doesn't make sense, basically. Yeah.
Nothing about the Jaghut makes sense.
It's not supposed to make sense, right? It's the Azath house. Anyway, she says something like the house feels dead. And he bangs on the door, but it's just solid, doesn't move, there is no I think they don't even hear an echo of the knocking and all that. And he turns around and watches as Korya just offhandedly throws the acorn into the yard, which is immediately taken over. And the earth forms a mound over it, and a small tree grows out of it. And at that time, the Azath house groans, and the door clicks, when he pushes, the door opens. And both of them go inside, and she explains that the acorn is actually a finest. What exactly is a finest? You just have to wait 11 books to reach here. A finest is a place to hide power, or a soul, or to imprison something. She tells him that ancient god which she and Haut had trapped, that was in the finest, and that's what she has thrown into the yard. They see that the angry god is trying to escape, and one of the branches splits open, and this is when the two run into the house. And as soon as they go inside, the door shuts and latches itself. And they wonder who opened it the first time. Okay?
Good
Scene
point.
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scene 2. Yeah, go on.
So, no,
About
what
the
I wanted to
finest?
mention is earlier, not about the finest, but earlier when they were talking about, Gothos would agree with you and whatnot. So for one, what they were talking about how Cruel's magic needed purging. This is actually something Draconis mentioned in Forge of Darkness. At the time, it seemed more of a cope. No, I didn't fuck up. She'll fix it. It's fine. We'll just give it to her and she'll fix it.
Okay.
Now it seems like it's more part of a plan gone awry, which, partly means that Erastus is to blame for everything that's currently going on, but let's not get there.
We can blame Erastus as long as you're clear that Draconis is the one who commissioned him to start doing this thing.
Fair enough.
We'll just stop it there and go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, Erastus killing Karish and then Draconis giving the Terrandai, who is tainted by Karish's blood, into Mother Dark, set off a chain reaction, basically, that's been going on for a while. Be it the death of the Shake God, Cruel's journey in this book, or even what Hood and company are doing. That's one thing. The other thing is, the ends don't justify the means. Arathan makes a very good point that they have a just cause for the Civil War, except at what point does a just cause justify some unholy means, and what means are unholy exactly? Which, if you haven't noticed, is a recurring question throughout the book. I generally want to, most people I think would want to empathize with the Legion, except for the fact that they're assholes, apparently. But they do have a just cause. It's just being hijacked by someone else for their own purposes. Erastus. You can see the parallels go throughout the book, right? It's not just the Legion being hijacked by Ral and his posse for their own purposes. It's also maybe even Spingal in this book, right? In this chapter, who wants to go see death up close as an Azathanai. To Erastus hijacking Cruel's warrants to make his tiles. To I don't even know anymore. There's a lot of things that this theme can apply to, and Arathan and Korya just basically summarized all of that theme in 2 paragraphs. It's not exactly subtle, but it's good writing, I think.
Yeah. We need a breather like this, once in a while.
Yeah. Right. Other than that, about the Finnest, from Gardens of the Moon, we learned it's only for Jaghut, and it's only a repository for power. Apparently, it also stores souls, or secrets, or is a prison. I think you made a very
nice parallel. Was it today?
Yeah.
What did you
with
call it?
The Horcrux.
Yeah, Harry Potter.
And I said specifically without the soul splitting stuff, because I forgot that it's a thing here. And also because it's not mentioned in Gardens, but yeah. That's a thing.
It's possible to have soul splitting because Korya basically tells him that, right? A Finnest can store a soul.
Yeah.
Why can't it store a part of his soul?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the brothers.
Yeah.
Scene 2. Jaghut and Hood. Once again, please listen to the audiobook. These 2 voices are excellent. All the Jaghut are really excellent. But Hood is one of my favorites so far.
Hood is amazing. Yeah, Hood's my favorite for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he nails it. God of Death, he nails it. That's all he must have gone by, right? Who is Hood? He's the God of Death, and so he just ran with it. So yeah, these 2 are sitting in front of an illusionary fire. There's not much warmth left. And Jaghut tells him that they have a problem. He tells him that they killed the Azath house long ago, but the elder spirit, which is now trapped there, is too powerful for this old yard. Hood remembers that they had fed 9 of their kin to the house, and Jaghut reminds that it was a long time ago, I think 500 years ago. Jaghut tells him to summon a builder, but Hood says that he has a better option. He's going to call the Senegal to help him. I mean, this chapter, do you think it is so blatant, in your face, what's going on? The first time I read Fall of Light, I was I had no clue what is going on. But now it's Erickson is just hitting you on the head saying, this is Letheras, this is an old dead Azath house. These are the 5 Toblakai guards trapped in the yard. Why the fuck aren't you putting these things together? It's so obvious.
I did also mention, we did mention, did we mention it? I don't remember if we did. About Hanako and Dalk Dennis and whatnot. And how there's Oblala gets a mace that's literally named I Killed the Dragon Dalk.
Yeah, no, I don't think we mentioned on the pod. I think we just discussed it.
I made a post about it a while ago, but yeah.
Okay.
If you didn't know, there's a lot of hints sprinkled throughout, this place is meant to be Letheras, or something akin to Letheras, maybe, eventually.
Or a layer of Letheras on top of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
This begs the question of where did Karkanas and all of those other cities go, but we'll get there when we get there.
They're underwater.
Maybe.
Or was it Kolance? Do you think the cripple god destroyed Kuralgalen? No, right? They do go to They do go to Karkanas. It's just layers. It's like, layered cake. One layer is Letterus. You dig a little bit deeper and you find Karkanas. Sorry. Please, can we go back to my summary? I just felt like very stupid when I saw the Senegal and felt like extremely dumb. Right. So Hood says these guys are so arrogant that they considering themselves as gods, and they're derided by fellow Thel Akai and Thelomen and everyone, and they don't have the art of taking a bath, right? So that's why he wants to send them, and the yard is going to welcome them and even their old lost kin also. And if he wants, he tells Hout you can still summon the builder, but he's not going to rush to you anyway. Now they discuss about Korya and how her instincts are very sound. Who tells them that the Senegal will be sent and he's going to test them in the Azath yard. What does Hout tell him? Hood, you will be the death of us all. And then Hood says, I will indeed, Hout. Yeah. Do you now hesitate? Then he says that there is no need to find a minder for Korya. She will have Arathan and they will return to Coral Galen. So Hout asks, is this a prophecy? Actually, in this chapter, you see that Hood somewhat gains this sight of prophecy, but in this specific instance with Arathan and Korya, he says it is something prosaic. He's just going to
the shit out of my mic. I'm very sorry.
Should I repeat?
Yeah.
He just tells them that.
Please.
Yeah, he just tells them that he's going to kick them back to Coral Galen. There's no prophecy involved here. He's just going to do it himself. Right. Scene 3 is the Senegal, Thel Akai, Hout, and Hood. Now the Senegal leader claws through his beard, bits of food fall out, and he's sitting there bragging about something, about how they are different. Other Thel Akai worshippers and Thel Akai and Thelomen fearers, etc. So, scene 3 is called the Senegal, the Thel Akai, and Hout and Hood. This Senegal leader, oh god, my voice is gone. The Senegal leader, he claws through his beard. And he's sitting there bragging that, how they are all different. And the other Thel Akai worship them. And even Thel Akai and Thelomen fear them. As he's saying all this, they hear a snort from beyond the circle of light. And they say it's just, it's a curious Thel Akai who's following them around. What is her name?
Sultanis Hes-Erekal.
Hes-Erekal. Do we have something to say? Let's just remind everyone this is spoilers.
Yeah, let's save this for when we get there.
Empire.
Yeah.
When we get where?
It's one page down, you'll see.
I mean, fine. Right, okay, fine. Okay, let's wait. So it is this Thel Akai who is just following them around. And she tells him that she's waiting for one of them to wander from the safety of the pack so that she will challenge them and kill them. The leader tells her to just, fuck off because Hood needs them. Then Hood goads them a little bit and then the guy asks, why are you suddenly doubting us? If he wants, I can face any challengers and all that. And then Hood says he doesn't want to lose more allies. So let them show their prowess by facing an ancient enemy. And then I think Hout takes them away. Then Erekul returns to the fire and says, the games you indulge in Hood. He asks if she's joining this, legion. She calls it what legion? It's a mob of fools. But she's there for vengeance. Hood knows about her tale, which we are not told. Then he says, you have a son, think about him or something. She says, I'm not just... okay, he's on a stout ship and he's safe. The High King has sent his protection on there. Then Rabi, do you want to add something like my King Kalor, environmental king and something? But then she says that Thel Akai fear no one. Yeah, eco-friendly. Hood says he worries. And she says that she's more than a mother. She is a chosen huntress of her tribe and she's here hunting. One day these guys will make a mistake and she will kill them. Hood says it won't work. So she better go to the Azath house and make sure that the yard takes them. He then says they killed the guardian of the house about 500 years ago and he owes that guardian an apology. Even though he didn't actually do the killing, he's saying that he is taking responsibility on behalf of his race. It is only civilization that allows you to evade such things. She decides to do what Hood suggested, but then asks what he has seen of her son. he says he sees him in the shadow of the High King, which is not a good place to be. Now, do you want to talk about it?
Okay, yeah. If you've read Return of the Crimson Guard, you probably know who this is referring to. If you haven't, I'm about to spoil the shit out of Return of the Crimson Guard. So there is a Thel Akai named Eriko, who is in the company, who, if you know Eriko, very clear similarity, who is in the company of Traveler. And for some reason, which is justified in the book of they aided my enemies or some such shit, the High King, the good King Kalor, has essentially elected to kill all Thel Akai for, as you do. And Eriko was purportedly the last of his race, and then they meet Kalor, and Kalor basically kills him without a fight. Because Eriko has accepted his fate, and no, I'm not gonna fight you, fine, just kill me, whatever. And then he mocks Traveler, and Traveler bitch slaps him because it's Traveler. So yeah. But neat callback. Further confirmation that the High King in question is probably Kalor, and if you have heard of Walk in Shadow, you probably know it actually is. Yeah, neat.
And also, I think someone asked him about the High King Kalor. I'm very sure it is Eriko who says something like, "There are many High Kings. There are many.
Yeah, there are many
Kalor,"
warlords.
Like
I think it's there's too many warlords.
Something like that. Yeah, he doesn't confirm or deny that High King is this High King, but it comes up. So again, very nice. Once again, I felt very foolish because. You know what? When I read Karkanas for the first time, I had not read novels of the Malasan Empire. Yeah,
this is why we mentioned reading the novels of the Malasan Empire before you read these books.
I mean, two things: the Witcher and Eriko. What else do
interests and what the Azathanai are, and what the Azath are about, and Telan, and a whole lot of other things. But hey, whatever. Yeah, it's just these two things.
And also, why not? Why not? Those 6 books are.
And also, why not? And Gothos. There's a lot more Gothos.
Oh my god, there is
Blood and Bone that is much more FOD and FOL Gothos than anything in the Book of the Fallen.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't invite people and make them tea and shit. It's just Gothos being
trash talks a circ for a book. Yeah, we got off track. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I think he has the same mannerism. Don't you think in OST he has the same tapping fingers?
Yeah.
There is something about his fingernails and tapping or something.
I think Blood and Bone was written after Forge of Darkness came out, which is probably why. But yeah, it's very much,
Is that so?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very much, that type of Gothos.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anyway. Now Hood is actually seems to have the gift of prophecy as he's drawing closer to Death's Veil, and he thinks that its flavor is timeless. So past, present, future, everything feels like one. And then she says something like death like a people. Now, I just want to ask you, you've not seen Arrival movie, right?
No.
Amy Adams? I think you should. You just should. This line reminded me of that, and I think if you it's actually based on a short story. If you want to finish reading that quickly, we can talk about that. I've not read the short story. I've only seen the movie, and the movie is really, really good. Okay. You want to go to scene 4?
I actually want to talk about something because he mentions, the veil of death and how its flavor is timeless. So, in chapter 4, after Kaplo gets bitten of this book, FOL.
Yeah.
We get a scene between Finara and Resh in which they talk about veils. This is a world of many veils, etc. And more specifically, they say, to draw something back from deep in death, into the to draw something back from deep in death into the living world must perhaps demand the same among the living. If a warlock seeks to journey both outward and inward in search of the one place where they meet, then the corollary is one of contraction, to collide in the same place, the same existence. For the dead to walk back into life, the living must walk into death. Yada yada.
I'm seriously shocked.
Power consumed, offering the strength to tear the veil between the living and the dead, and so defy the laws of time. Time, Warlock? Not place? They may be one and the same. The dead dwell in the past, the living crowd the present, and the future waits for those yet to be born. Yet in birth they are flung into the present, and so the future ever remains a promise. These two are veils. With our thoughts we seek to pry our way into the future, but those thoughts arrive as dead things. It is a matter of perspective, you see. To the future, both present and past are dead things. We push through, and we make the as yet unknown world a better version of our own. But with nothing but lifeless weapons to hand, we make lifeless victims of those yet to be born. Which is rash moping for a whole page, but the point is, we do get a lot of mentions of veils, and veils of time, and veils of space. And the veil of death, which is a proper noun, veil, capital V, of death. And what is interesting is the fact that Resh knows about this and can speak of this before the awakening of sorcery on a wide level means that this is not something completely new. This is something that warlocks, or something akin to them, have studied in the past. Maybe not to the extent that Hood is trying to do, not like literally walk into death and declare war on it, but more so, in a way, this is perhaps something that others may have considered, since I'm grasping at straws here, but, what with the talk of thrones, and the throne of night, and the throne of dark, and the throne of light to be created, and there's I guess Stula Shorn and Pull the Hounds saying, what of the throne of life, and the throne of death, and the throne of whatnot, or the hounds of thereof. Maybe some other crazy bastard tried to grab the throne of death before, and reasonably failed, because we don't have a god of death at the moment, but maybe this isn't the new thing. Now, I say maybe because I don't even know. It's not tackled in the book, if you're wondering. This is my speculation completely based on this. But maybe.
Take a shot each time you say maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's Karkanas in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, please continue.
Right. Scene 4, Arathan and Korya. They are in a sitting room where there is a fireplace with embers in it. Can you believe it? There's nobody there, but it's an ember-filled fireplace. There are dog runner rugs, which Korya recognizes. Arathan doesn't know about all this, and she says that it's because he hasn't walked in their camps or joined their fires where women make stone tools and boys learn to make nets and snares before they... What happened?
Nothing. Just because, well, for one, because the casual racism, but also it doesn't make sense for them to only use stone and bone and antler and stuff like that. I'm still salty about that. We're going to get to that eventually when we get there.
Yeah. We'll just allot a separate hour for you to rant about Stone Age and whatever ages you want to talk about. Okay.
Yeah.
So these boys, they have a tradition of year of wandering. Arathan seems to like the idea. And in spite of the fire, this house definitely looks empty. Maybe it opened to them to protect them from this old god in the yard. And that's when a ghost appears, a ghostly dog runner. It has a hole in his chest where its heart should have been. And Korya literally calls it apparition. We beg forgiveness for this intrusion or something. She just calls him that. And he says the dead are unforgiving. They don't need to beg pardon or plead indulgence or whatever. We love this guy, right? We love Caddick, right?
Yeah.
So he simply doesn't care. Then Arathan asks what does he want of them, and he says only what all old men want, an audience for his story. Then Arathan asks Korya if this is the company, like this dog runner, is this what she's willingly seeking? She says that probably dying has changed this guy, but And the ghost says, I'm being ignored, and this is typical. Once I was a bone caster, and I was stubborn or addled or both. And he says that some delusions are comforting and some truths are unpleasant. I'm just skipping over a lot of his mopey things. I mean, it's just him ranting. It's fun, but there's nothing much going on there. Then Arathan wants to know how he came to this house. He says, How? By the front door. And then he asks how, who killed him. And he says it was a Jaghut who undertook fatal exploration of the magic within him. Do they give you Thaumaturg vibes? Are Thaumaturgs like part Jaghut? Did they descend from them?
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
So all they found when they did this, living dissection was life spark. This spark was quenched in that exploration, which of course this guy had predicted, but nobody listened. So he says that the next time you meet Jaghut, can you please pass a message? Just tell them I told you so, and if you're brave, just add idiots at the end. Then Arathan, yeah, Arathan named
Just a friendly reminder that this is the same book that has, people killing themselves in tents because of self-recrimination.
Yeah. Then Arathan talks something about Gothos and the dog runner, who finally gives his name as Guardian Cadig Avel, says he has been looking for this Jaghut because he said he's going to commit suicide. And is he still alive? That's very typical or something. And Arathan says he's writing his suicide note. And yeah. So Cadig tells him, you know what? Do you think that we're talking so much about suicide and suicide notes? Should there be like a trigger warning? I don't know. We're treating this all very lightly, but I'm not sure.
More so because we talked about Gothos, like whenever Gothos is mentioned, it's pretty explicit that his suicide note is meant to be a statement on his part.
Reinforcement of life or something.
Yeah, of life's values. It's not so much, I'm going to actually do it. It's like, I'm doing this to show the absurdity of actually doing it.
Like an unending suicide note, right? It's unending.
Something.
Yeah. I mean, I was not sure. I don't know. I just got the idea.
Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Cadig tells them that if they had agreed to listen to his life story, they would have heard a list of deeds, like his crimes, his regrets, his loves, more regrets. In fact, they would have been, treated to a whole litany of regrets. After all, isn't life story nothing but a suicide note? And he doesn't know if he makes sense anymore because so far he has been his only audience for so long, and there was too much catcalling derision. Then Arathan tells him about Hood's plan and this legion which is gathered. The ghost is very offended at this. He says, why won't the living leave them alone? I'm sorry, it's so funny. Like, everywhere it's like, oh yes, we have to go to the... I can't be coherent, sorry. He says something like the realms of the dead. It's an awesome place. There are no arguments. There are no preening. There are no grudges. And even vengeance seems laughable at this place. There is a bit there in which he says, like, the audiobook goes, it's laughable. Can you believe it? Ha, ha, ha. And the audiobook just... He's really good. So, he tells all this. And finally, what does Korya say? Mother save us. She's just so done, and she turns back to the fire. And this is when this ghost says, okay, one lost and one still good. One still to go. And it's when he realizes what he's doing. And then he tells Arathan, you can bring up anything else so that I can dismantle that idea. And Arathan says, why bother? And the ghost says, yeah, you have a point. And it vanishes. Right. Now, do you have anything to add here? I don't think so.
I just want to say that, like, this is the same book that had, shit like that.
Yeah.
And then it also had Last Heroic and Raised, so I guess I can see the point. But, this is somewhat of a confirmation of what Korya said earlier about, like, how old men will hope dies to 10,000 small cuts, and these men around us are mostly discarded. He basically, like Cadig, for all his hilariousness, basically indulges and finds funny in the tearing apart of, like, delusions of young people and their hopes for the future, which isn't all that good. I mean, he's funny, and he's treated as funny by the narrative. It's not, like, supposed to be, depressing and, oh, woe is me, like, I don't know, fucking no, golf balls. But, yeah.
You're not happy with the way he's shutting down the young people.
No, I mean, it's not like I'm not happy with it. It's like the narrative disagrees with his assessment. But it is so funny.
It's very funny. Yeah. Okay. So once he vanishes, Arathan tells Korya he must tell what his ghost has said about the realms of the dead. So it's a real place, it exists, and so he better tell Hood. Korya says that they won't be welcome, and he says that's fine, this is war after all. And Korya says the dead have no reason to fight. And what does Arathan say? We will give them a reason to fight, which is just so dumb. Then Korya says, yeah, she has some good comebacks here. Some woman hurt you. I'm not using that exact phrase, but she says something like somebody hurt you, and that's not a good enough reason to abandon the living world. And the people in Hood's army, their grief is a real thing. What? You found the phrase now. Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah, it's not just like some woman hurt you, it's some woman jangled your jewels and stole your heart. And it's
I
just...
I don't say that.
It's how can you not say that? It's...
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, see, the thing is, there is a fine line between telling your friend, get over it, get over yourself, and what you're going through is not a big deal, and supporting them. Like, I understand what you're going through is something really, when you see your friends like this, right? You don't know which way to treat them. It depends on your friendship and the way that person is. But it's a very fine line. So it's very nice that Korya takes this route with Arathan, because she's not exactly that type of supportive person, right? Like, okay, you're hurt, that's fine, but don't do this. It's not like that. She just yells at him. Hood's army's grief is a real thing. It's a serious kind. It crushes everything inside them, and in a way, most of them are already dead. We should remember, Arathan is not something he's just like had a bad breakup or anything. He's been through a lot for a young guy, for a teenager. He's been through really a lot. But she tells him to get over himself. And he says she's wrong because people like Jaghut and Verandas and all, they have not come out of grief. And she says that's, the Jaghut sixth sense of humor. And they've come out of loyalty. And Korya regrets that she didn't go with the Jaghut. Maybe even now she can run into them on the way back to Kural Galen. Again, I skipped a bit. If you want to supply it, please do.
No, it's fine.
No? Are you sure? Why did she miss the Jaghut? What did she want to learn with them? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, it's a big mystery. So maybe she thinks that, maybe I can run into them on the way back to Kural Galen. And then there is sudden thunder and the house starts sweating. The ghost reappears and says, look what you've done. We're getting more company now. And you two are not going to replace me because you're too eager for the world and too hopeful to be a guardian for a prison. And then they realize the Jaghut knew all along that this was a prison. Now they wonder, why do the Azathanai worship a prison? Right? Because...
Which is a very good point.
Yeah. And anyway, they decide to go to the tower and open a window and look out and see what's happening outside. What's happening outside is scene 5, the Senegal showdown. Jaghut watches the leader escape the yard. It starts from the end of the fight. So he's hurt and he's lost his weapon. And Jaghut thinks that's the problem with the ancient gods. A reluctance to die. And one more Senegal almost escapes. But the Thel Akai woman, Erekol, is still there. She stabs him. And then the leader brings his group together and they form like a defensive cordon. By Jaghut's count, I think 5 are missing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guess there would be 5 missing? And the yard starts settling down. Jaghut notices the 2 faces at the tower window and wonders how these 2 got in. Erekol says that Korya makes her skin crawl because she stirs up trouble in the camp by mocking Hood's followers. Now, who escapes the Azath house? Gethol.
Gethol, yeah.
He escapes it and Jaghut welcomes him and tells him that Gautos is going to be pleased. Again, this guy also asks the same thing. So he's not yet dead. And he tells him that 5 are down. The 5 Senegal are down and that should do for the house for now. And Kadig is also dead, but Gethol says he feels some living spirits inside the house, which is Korya and Arathan. Jaghut then catches Korya's eye and waves her down. Then the Jaghut make their way to the Tower of Hate, where Gautos is staying. And Gethol says it feels like he almost never left. 500 years and Gautos is doing the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
Scene 6, the Ilnap. Now, remember the 3 Ilnap? Cred, Brella and Stark? They had a living claim, and these were the guys who accidentally summoned that ancient god, right? The sea god. So, Cred notices that the fire is dying. Not his magic, nothing, just the fire. Something is stealing the heat. Brella says then they just have to starve. Or Stark says maybe we can learn to eat raw things like the dog runners. Brella gets mad again, and
What
one more person. Yeah?
Seriously, what's with the racism towards dog runners? What gives? Come on.
See, I'll tell you, it's because the dog runners are the only ones who are still using stone weapons. That's why they have not evolved yet. All the others are using metals, and these guys haven't evolved, and so everyone looks down on them.
Right.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Then Brella says that only if she has to be so ignorant if she thinks that dog runners don't cook their food, and she scolds a younger woman, saying, "Look at this belligerence showing up on your face. You look just like your mother and all that." May the sea hoarder rest her soul. Cred says that Stark's mother would have defied the water filling her lungs, and he had admired it in the days before magic. But now he feels the ghosts of that time has returned, like when they used to feel helpless, and he sits facing all that he has lost. Stark tells her she is nothing like her mother, and Brella is nothing like her daughter. Who is Brella's daughter?
The captain.
She's a blue captain without the name who tells Arathan that don't make your first war your last one or something like that. Yeah, so this captain, she has cast aside her name and her relationship in order to command this broken army and beaten refugees. And it was the High King's fleet which broke their highborn. And if anything, it was Brella and her daughter who can claim the royal line even now. She snorts, but Cred still persists. Brella held the living claim and gave it to him for safekeeping. We discussed this living claim thing before, right? We are still not very sure what it means. As you said, it's just like, who is a direct descendant or something.
Yeah, and it's the living claim to the lost throne.
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe. This could be.
Which, by the way, these are all the most generic fantasy ass names ever. The living claim, the lost throne, the first betrayal is the last betrayal. What the fuck? Am I reading 90s pulp fantasy? What gives?
What? How dare you?
Come on. How dare? Come on. This is the most prophesied shit ever.
Fine. Don't worry. We're going back to a very non-90s pulp fiction chapter soon, so which you're going to be summarizing very soon. So that okay. So and anyway, this is all just a bunch of politics. She chose this title of captain because she sees no future for them, and that is why they are here. It was prophesied that their first betrayal would be their last. See, you've taken the spirit out of my summary. Brella is done with all these pointless words, and defeat is their addiction, and the daughter leads them on a path of no return. And in this path, the living claim lives no longer. Stark curses the High King, and Brella says there is no point in cursing him, because what they did was ride his coast and loot his merchants. For our audio listeners who can't see what's going on, there is Lee sitting with a huge heart. What do you call it? A heart on your hands, whatever.
Yeah, heart symbol.
He's making a heart because we're talking about Kalar right now. So, what the Ilnab did was ride his coast and loot his merchants and sink their ships for years and years and years, and his retribution was just. She walks away, and then Cred once more looks at the dying fire. His magic is the same, but the fire is low. Stark says maybe something else is feeding on what they're offering. Something is stealing this heat every day. Outside, the world is preparing for a time of breeding and renewal, but it's not so here, in this camp. And then Cred realizes that maybe they have drifted inward, curling down a spoke to settle on the hub. And at the very heart of that hub is Hood. And he's traitor.
Hood.
It has begun. Hood. It has begun.
Hood.
So this chapter is where it begins. Right? Yeah. If you've seen Game of Thrones, if someone says it begins, the correct response will be, no, this is where it ends. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Scene 7, there is Verandas and Spingal. How do you say it?
Spingal.
She's an awesome gal. That's why she's Spingal.
Yeah.
So, Verandas asks Hood what he's doing. He's ending time, of course. And what does he reply?
No wonder it's taking so long.
It's taking so long. And then there one Azathanai who was hiding like a Jaghut. Spin Girl joins them. And sorry. And I think there was some talk long ago where they were wondering who is this Jaghut Azathanai and why they have not found her yet or found that person yet. It's her.
Yep.
It's Spin Girl. And Varandas wonders, he thinks that maybe she will challenge Hood, but he says he is proof against challenges. Then Varandas calls him a dullard and, let reason bludgeon the dullards, and the witless defy it with piggy eyes and pressed lips, and they declare the stars are pot studs in the sky's velvet, and beasts are nothing but fodder for their appetite. They take pride in their stupidity. He wonders why every civilization has a time like that where idiots dominate the discourse. He keeps ranting, and then Hood asks, "Are you done?" And he says, "The witless don't comprehend rhetorical questions." So on and so on. Yeah. And that's when Spingal reaches them. I mean, see, let the joke works, but also I'm like very sure Varandas knows what he's doing. Like, he's Jaghut. It's not like he's just cluelessly going on talking, right? He knows what he's doing. He's just saying. Okay, so Spingal reaches them and calls Hood clever for bringing the realm to them. And she was the one hidden Azathanai who everyone thought had fled, but apparently she had just stayed hidden in the Tower of Hate all this while. Varandas says she made a mistake by taking the guise of an extreme beautiful woman because, Jaghut is skinny and she's very curvy and so on. And she offers to oblige him in kind and make him a woman, but he refuses. And Steve is telling us, "I shall remain content with occasional misapprehension." So, yeah. Varandas tells Hood that he agrees. It was a clever thing to do. And then Hood says, "Even the witless sometimes shed a spark." And Hood says he always thought the Tower of Hate was solid. And she tells it's the Jaghut propensity for taking things too literally and not figuratively enough. And she tells him that this molestation of time is unwise. And Hood says, "Hood, my favorite Hood." He says, "Wisdom is overrated." And then Spingale says she will join them just out of curiosity. And she's fascinated by this concept of death, where soft shells decay once the spirit has fled. And they seem so afflicted by the concept of death. Veranda says not all Jaghut feel that way, and sometimes the flesh is a weary vessel, and death may be a relief or an escape. But do you want to read the next bit? I think I've just copy-pasted the whole thing. But why confound a soul?
But why confound a soul with the uncertainty of its immortality? Perhaps, ventured Hood, to awaken in us the value of faith. And what value has faith, Hood? Belief exists in order to humble the mundane world of proofs. If mortal flesh is a prison, so too is a world too well known. Within and without we desire, and perhaps need, a means of escape. An escape you name faith. Thank you, Hood. You have enlightened me. Not too much, one hopes, lest all wonder die in your lavender eyes.
Varandas, he's in love. And she says something like, "Beauty desires admiration until it tires of it." I think you want to talk about the concept of faith.
So, basically, yeah. The Jaghut seem to treat their soul as immortal, as in their dead flesh is a prison for their soul. And Spingal then asks, reasonably, why then confound the soul with the uncertainty of its immortality? Like, if you treat death as a relief and an escape, then why treat a soul as if it's immortal? Like, okay, it dies and it's just trapped forever in your body, then what? What do we do next? And Toad replies that then, because we do that, because we need to have faith. We need some concept which offers that escape, and that concept we call faith. And so belief is our means, this means of escape for our souls. Because, as is often the case in such discussions, the ultimate goal is humility. A world too well known is mundane. It's boring. It's a prison in and of itself.
What happens without humility? I think the last chapter we were told there is no growth.
Oh, right, yeah, that was raised,
The
right?
superior intellect thinks, it is.
Yeah. Of course it was
There is
raised.
no
What am I
humility.
saying? Of course.
Yeah,
Of
it's
course.
raised. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking more of Capello
So-
and Rash because, raised
okay.
also nailed it.
Yeah. Okay, and Spingal says beauty desires admiration until it tires of it. If there is too much flattery, one starts doubting the veracity as well as the worth of that flattery. And then she says she only gives shape to his imagination and he calls it a rare gift. They basically flirt, Jaghut level flirting. It's too much for us. She then tells Hood that the Azath house has got some reprieve and even the ghost is invigorated now. Hood asks her for a favor. He tells her to spread the word that it will be very soon now. She agrees, and while leaving, she tells Verandas that she shouldn't have slept with him. He says yes, because now he is eternally smitten with her. She finds this pathetic and decidedly unattractive, I think she tells. And Verandas seems to still think there is hope of getting together with her. He says, "Seed this ground with hope and watch me flower with a sense of delight and anticipation." Verandas is a pure romantic at heart. I just like him, her, whatever, so much. She tells him they're about to war with the dead. And he says bad timing is another one of his curses. And then she leaves, and Veranda senses that Gethol is coming back. Hood, I think, starts saying, "Don't be ridiculous." And then he says, "Yes, I should have expected Gethol will come back." And he says he expects a fist to his nose, which is always better than a long conversation. He tells him it was not his fault, and Veranda tells Hood, "Be sure to tell that to Gethol." Yeah. So that's scene 7. Now, scene 8. You want to talk about scene 8? Arathan and Korya. This is like nothing really happens. We're almost done. Ericol prowls the walls of the Azath, and Arathan can't stop staring at her. Have you ever mentioned the theory of who Arathan is? I think we must have, right?
We have, right? I think we have.
I mean, it's
Well, if we
not
haven't, might
confirmed.
as well
It's
rehash
not
it here.
denied. Sorry?
Yeah. Might as well rehash it here, no?
Sure. So who is Arathan in the Book of the Fallen?
So the most convincing, I suppose, theory we have so far is that Arathan is Ruthan God for a handful of reasons, among them the name, because, can't be too original and, get too much of a different name. The fact that Ruthan is an elder, but not what you think it means, and so on and so forth. More pertinent to Korkanos, Arathan's name means to walk on water, and he has an aversion to dogs for reasons, and a few other things. Basically, it lines up quite well, like Korya being Quick Ben. It's not yet confirmed, and another theory I've seen is that Arathan is just another one of the souls in Quick Ben, which is interesting. We also raised, I think, way back when, like dinosaur times, the theory that Arathan's mother is Triss.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very convincing.
We haven't had any reason to believe otherwise so far.
It's just the walk in water, and she has something to do with water all the time. So.
Yeah, and the dreams. Most of the dreams.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, no, I was bringing that up here because who is the woman Ruthan gets together with in, I think, Dust of Dreams?
Scanaro.
She's a warrior woman, right? So,
yeah.
I was thinking of that because he's seeing Ericol and thinking, does he like warriors or not? He can't decide. So, meanwhile, Korya and Hout are arguing at a little distance away, and the remaining Senegal have all limped away. Maybe they're a little humble now, because death has a good way of bringing down arrogance. The air is strangely still, and even dust seems to be hanging in the air without settling. It felt like nature was holding its breath. Now, Korya finishes arguing, and she tells Arathan, "Let's go." Where? Anywhere but here. Behind them, Ericol and some other Jaghut women join Hout with a jug of wine. Korya says nothing makes sense. Yeah, this is what I've wrongly attributed. It is Arathan who says nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this is a dead civilization, then where did this wine come from? She turns around, sees, and says that Jaghut woman is called Sanad. Is this person in Book of the Fallen?
Yeah.
Sanad.
She's one of, Sanad. I think she might even be the speaker woman of the of the 14 Jaghut. I'm not sure. But yeah, all of the Jaghut names we've seen, except for every Jaghut here. Gethel is Hood's Herald in the Book of the Fallen.
Yeah.
So he too is undead, but he's not a member of Hood's 14.
Brucalion.
Yeah,
yeah. So I don't like Gethel so much.
So yeah, every Jaghut you see here, except for Gothos and for Spingal, which isn't really a Jaghut, is a member of Hood's 14.
So she says that this Jaghut woman is Sanad, who was his old lover, and now they're getting drunk together, and somehow Korya doesn't like it. She doesn't like Jaghut women apparently, because they know too much and they say too little. Arathan tries to banter, but then she tells him, not now, I'm not in the mood or something. She is now an orphaned hostage, but also so much more than that. Arathan doesn't want to argue, so he tells her that he's looking for some warriors, back in the realm of the dead. But maybe they are dead. He wants to ask the warriors if it was worth it, the fighting and the killing. She thinks they are not going to tell him anything, and even if they did, it won't be worth it because they died. That means they failed. But more than all of that, he's not going to get any chance because Arathan is now her keeper. She is his hostage and he has to deliver her to House Dracones. Right? Because he belongs to that house. He says something like, I'm only a bastard son. And she says, no. You were already acknowledged by Draconis. So it is his responsibility to deliver her safely to Kurangilin to his father's estate. And once she is safe there, he can do what he pleases. And Arathan says this is all very underhanded. She says, get ready, we are not going to linger. Arathan says that if he is the keeper, then he gets to decide when they depart from here. And he's very busy. He has an important job to translate Gothos' folly. And she tells him he is an idiot if he thinks Gothos is ever going to stop. I thought you would have worked it out by now. And Arathan says, no, he's getting to the interesting bits now. So basically it is autobiographical in nature and the story begins on the day he ended civilization and then it keeps going back in time. She calls it stupid. And Arathan says the point is there has to be an end somewhere when he reaches his earliest memory. And so far he has managed to translate 6 years, but his writing itself goes back a couple of centuries. And how old is Gothos? 2 or 3. 2 or 3 centuries? No, 2 or 3 millennia. She almost hits him and controls herself. And then Arathan says there are dead people he needs to see. She tells him to instead look at the living and they might say something worth hearing. He says it might be irresponsible of him to take her back to a civil war. And what does she say?
Just fuck off, will you? I'm off to see a man with freckles on his arms.
Yeah. So, it's a nice circular conclusion to this chapter. It's a nice small break of a chapter, right? A good one. Anything
it's like
add?
chapter 15, right? It's like, rather than having Galan tell you, oh, it begins, you have a character in the world saying, oh, it begins. And, well, it begins.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is more or less another shift in the book where things start to happen. We already saw that the deniers turned into Eater. Somehow,
yeah.
What else we learned? Beyond that Hood's starting, and there's an Azathanai here. What else?
We learned that
also, the Sergal and the Azath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 4 has already brought up this whole thing about what do you call the veils of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a new concept, so
yeah,
that's a nice. Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention is
the same sea monster we see in Midnight Tides. This trapped sea monster.
No. Yes. Maybe.
Yeah, there is a lake. I think it's frozen inside the lake or something.
Yeah, by
There is
Jaghut.
a different Jaghut there. That is called Huntress. It's not...
Yeah.
See? There's so
but
many
Huntress is not a
collections
name, it's a title.
It's a title,
She's the Huntress of the Beasthold. So, yeah.
But she's a Jaghut, right?
Yeah. Was it Beasthold or Icehold? Icehold, probably. Yeah, that makes sense.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just remember Bug saying that, you should keep friendship with...
Yeah, it pays to keep, some of the little animals ever learned, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Do you want to wind up?
One piece of trivia I wanted to mention is the fact that we have excerpts from Gothos' Folly means that Arathan really did sit and translate a whole bunch of more stuff. Poor fucking bastard.
He needed a job. He was interning. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So next week is chapter 14, which is very light-hearted. I think it's full of jokes.
I assure you, it's utmost light-hearted. Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
it does have a few interesting scenes with interesting
scenes. I've not read it yet, so okay. Bye.
Yeah. See ya. Good night.
Good night.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.